Today on Moviewallas, we talk about Daddio, Janet Planet, and Ghostlight. It's time for Moviewallas. Hi, this is Joe.
Hi, it's Rashmi.
And Yazdi as well.
Moviewallas is your weekly dose of film reviews, movie news, and general banter in theatres, on DVD, online streaming, or in the back of an airplane. If you love the movies, this show is for you.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July, indeed, yes. It's so nice to be recording on a holiday.
Yes.
So nice to have a holiday.
Yes.
So nice to have a holiday in the middle of the week.
Yes.
So
Yes.
depressing to go back
That
to work
should happen
tomorrow.
more often. It should randomly happen.
Yeah,
It doesn't.
It's funny, like, all of our holidays are always a Monday,
Or a Friday.
but mostly
Well,
a
no,
Monday.
Juneteenth wasn't.
Well, I know why, because some holidays are not by date. They're by like the last Thursday of the month. Like Thanksgiving is the 4th Thursday of November.
Right.
So it's always Thursday.
It's always the X number of day in the month, the first Monday or the second Monday or whatever it is. But
But July 4th,
it is what it
4th
is.
of July, it is what it is.
Yes.
As is Juneteenth.
As is Christmas.
As is Christmas,
As
yes.
is New Year, yes.
All right. All right. Maybe not it's all holidays,
Okay.
but yes, it was nice to have a break. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're using it to do one of our favorite things, which is record a podcast.
Well, it's either watching movies or talking about movies, to be fair.
All of the above.
Yes.
All of the above. I'm still on my kind of post-IFLA high.
Yes.
If you didn't catch our last podcast episode, it was all about the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles. Even if you don't know about those films, and I think that's a funny podcast for us because you'll never hear. If you want to listen to it to hang out with us, great. But oftentimes people tune in to hear about specific movies. I would say just go back and kind of check it out. I think all of the movies that we talked about were absolutely worth talking about. And those filmmakers are absolutely worth talking about. So, listen to us and see if you can seek out some of those movies.
Indeed. And some of them will make the light of the day or will see the light of the day. And, I think, for example, one of the movies we saw that we enjoyed a lot, Kill, opened today in cinemas. And this is a movie which is begging to be seen in the cinemas. It's a cathartic experience watching it with a large group of people. If you're looking for a recommendation to watch this weekend
Yes.
or any weekend, do yourself a favor.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's a wide release as well, right?
Yes, it's a wide release. It's showing in your cinema.
And we loved that movie. Well, Yazdi and I think loved the movie.
No, I liked it a lot too. Yeah, I think I was just a little worn out to go on the same ride that you all did, but
Yes.
I still admired it a great deal.
Yep.
Yeah, I might actually go see it
I would
again
see it
over
again.
the weekend.
I would go with you.
Because it was a blast, and it's kind of movie that I think is going to be watchable over and over and over. Okay, I think I made the decision that we didn't have time in this podcast to do a streaming pick.
3 movies.
I know, and there's probably a lot to say about at least one of them. I haven't, and that's only because I haven't seen one of them, and the other one I don't know that I have all that much to talk about. But let's
Jump right in.
into business. Okay, so the 3 movies we're talking about today are Daddio, Janet Planet, and Ghostlight. So
Kind of 3 smaller movies,
They're all
it felt
smaller
like.
movies, yes.
So why don't we dive into Daddio?
So Daddio is from writer and director Christy Hall, and it stars Dakota Johnson, Sean Penn, and Marcos A. Gonzalez. Actually, the movie is pretty much a 2-hander. There's only 2 actors in the movie, and those are the 2 big name actors, Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn. And the premise for the movie, per IMDb, is that a woman takes a cab ride from JFK Airport and engages in a conversation with the taxi driver about the important relationships in their lives. So, doesn't get much smaller than this movie is, but should people reach out to it and seek it, regardless of it being so small?
Okay, so I've often done the ride from one of those New York airports and jumped in a cab all the way into the city. And it's, it's a long ride depending on traffic. So I appreciated the subject matter. And I applaud the movie for being one of those single destination is how I want to describe it type movies, like Buried or Drive. Although it can seem a little contrived because you are literally in the cab for the running time. And all I can say is, thank God it's a flat fare. I really enjoyed this movie, although I felt it was a little contrived at times. But overall, I thought it's a very interesting story. It feels a little bit too precious at times. But I think this has great acting from Sean Penn. I mean, he's phenomenal in this movie.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I love the compactness of its setting, right? It's yeah, of course. All of these types of things are contrivances to put people in an enfortment where they get to have a conversation. And, I've had some discussions with cab drivers over the year. None of them have gone this deep, fortunately for me. But look, so let's set aside the fact that we want to put two people, very different ages, very different life journeys, different stages of life together into a hermetically sealed environment for the purposes of having a dialogue that is propelled to propel a script in a story. I thought it worked really well. I enjoyed both performances. Sean Penn was really good because I think his was the more difficult of the two to kind of believe. And yet, he delivered this kind of very leathery, weathered, older man.
Vanity free.
Who had lived a real life. And, the Dakota Johnson character, while I think she was, very much a kind of a creation of something to have a dialogue about things like gender dynamics and relationships. She played that really well as well. I think there was a lot of opportunity there for kind of missteps, but the dialogue to me mostly was note perfect. I mean, I think I believed in these people from the get-go. I really enjoyed their status changes over time, the kind of game of tennis that we had in terms of who they were. I liked some of the external influences. So overall, I really had a fun time with this.
Yeah. Yazdi.
Yeah, I like these movies. I like these movies which are kind of, it's just two actors. Everything comes down to two actors and a terrific script and great direction. And, I knew that this is written and directed by Christy Hall, who is an actress. I did not know that Christy Hall is very, very young. She's in her early 30s and she was an actress in a few movies before. So the fact that somebody this young has written the script and also directed it, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, it gives me hope, right? Because this is not a nepo thing, right? It's not somebody's, famous kid who, got a movie made. This movie kind of stands and it's in theaters by virtue of merit and merit alone. Mm-hmm. It reminded me a lot of the movie Lock with Tom Hardy from a while back. That was actually just one person in a car, for the entirety of the movie. Sorry, this is just two people in a cab for the entirety of the movie, although there are some flashbacks, brief flashbacks. So I think it when you have a movie like that, it calls for a lot out of those two actors because they are constantly reacting to each other and nobody drops the ball. So I really enjoyed that. I happened to read the other day that, those two are very unlikely actors. Like I wouldn't think of Dakota Johnson and Sean Penn together.
Yeah.
Like Sean Penn hasn't actually done much in a while. And, he's been doing a few interviews for this movie. And it turns out the two of them are neighbors. They live close to each other. And so she knew of Sean Penn as her neighbor. And when she read the script, she was convinced he would be perfect for it. So she literally knocked on his door and said, I have a script for you. And so I'm glad that she knocked on his door and I'm glad that he agreed. because I think I had kind of forgotten how good Sean Penn can be as an actor. He kind of gets dragged down a lot by his extreme politics, which kind of consumes him often. But I think if you set that aside, I think that character actually is, what do I say? That character actually is weird. You know, it's a mishmash of many different, you know, stereotypes of a particular kind of person. And he has to be one thing at one point and another thing at another point. And I think it still kind of is a little clunky to me, but the very fact that it works at all is because of Sean Penn.
Agree. I was going to say the superior actor to me is definitely Sean Penn. And I think the problem I had the most with the movie is it felt at times a little bit tonally inconsistent. So when it starts out, I almost thought this was going like serial killer, murder, horror, because it's so tight. And the way he looks at her, is he yearning after her? Is he just trying to make conversation? Like, why is he engaging with her so much? And then once I kind of settled into it and kind of realized this is going to be nothing more than watching two people interact in a cab, I kind of relaxed a little bit and I kind of enjoyed it a little bit more. But again, he gives a note perfect performance, I think. We already know who this person is by the way he looks and what's in his taxi cab and how he interacts with the young lady at the back. Again, I think it's a really good movie. It just felt a little bit contrived to me.
I mean, I think the change in tone is to kind of bring in a 3-act structure to something that is ostensibly just a dialogue.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you have to have...
It's a stage play.
You know, the getting to know each other and then the real drama at the height of it, and then kind of how, you know, where they end up in terms of the relationship that they formed over this very short kind of period of time. And for it to be believable, I think we need to have an arc. And I think that arc is the change in tone that perhaps that you felt.
I think it does strain credibility because two things.
For sure.
Because there are things that he asks of her which I don't think any cab driver would dare to ask another person. I mean, he really probes. Maybe somebody will, and I would just say, shut up. It's none of your business. But I think they've built a relationship by that time.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've been in those cabs, and they're always either from New York or to New York, and it's some older dude who's, you know, got a really interesting story. I mean, it's believable in that sense, but you're right. The depth to which he goes is almost, you know, petrifying for someone like me, because I'm like, I don't want to share that information with anyone.
And we're going to be talking about this for at least one other movie we are discussing on this podcast. But I was playing this game with the movie, like you, Rashmi, through the first half of it at least, where I'm like, when is the twist coming?
Yeah.
When is the twist coming?
Yeah.
Like, when is she finding out he's her father, you know, long lost father? Or when is she finding out that he's a serial killer?
Right.
Or when is he finding out that, you know, or when do they find out that they're actually good friends and they're just pretending to be in a cab? I don't know what it was. I was
something seemed off.
I was like, where is the twist coming? And then after the halfway point, I gave up and I said, it's okay. There doesn't need to be a twist. It just needs to be about two people, you know, who connect.
I think I would have maybe gone on that journey, but apart from the title of the movie, Daddio kind of immediately settled me into, I immediately got that this was a girl with daddy issues.
Yeah.
I for some reason I knew that the other partner was
don't give it away.
Well, no, but older.
Yeah. Right? Okay.
So I think there was something that kind of just made me think about that, and I think maybe that was just the title. But,
I don't care for
I always title. Kind of felt...
Yeah, I don't like the title.
I don't like the title, but I think it explains the dynamic between the two characters.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think there is an attraction that she has to him, which... despite his, you know, he's completely, you know, he's not a matchup for her, but there is definitely an attraction that she has there because of her issues. And I like this kind of pseudo psychological, you know, he's a therapist at one point, right?
Right.
He's so impossibly insightful, you know, given that he met her. But, you know, the way he kind of peels back the onions and onion leaves and
exposes her
and helps her see herself, the situation that she is in. it was just very fun. It was very, very nicely done.
Playful. Yeah,
writing.
I mean, here's the thing I have. This is always the problem I have with Dakota Johnson. I think she's a good actress, and she's, again, note perfect in this movie. But I always feel like there's something, like she's got a pair of gloves on her. I never feel connected with her. I can never connect directly with her.
I would say that often, but not here.
Yeah, so I just always feel like I'm watching a performance, and I'm watching an actress trying to do their best job, but it's always Dakota Johnson.
I'm a Dakota Johnson fan.
Yeah,
I always like her. And I think she gets accused a lot of not having versatility, in which I completely agree.
Yeah.
She can't play like a giggly teenager.
Right.
She cannot play, I don't know, whatever, but she's always Dakota Johnson.
Yeah,
right?
there's something icy about her, something that you can't quite connect with.
I don't know if it's icy. I think there's an intelligence about her. There's a smartness about her.
Yeah.
Which may come off as a little arrogant sometimes.
Maybe. That's, yeah.
And that kind of plays into all of her roles. But again, the camera is on her face for like,
constantly,
I don't know, half the movie. And she's reacting, and she is a damn good actor, I think, in this movie. I mean, she, of course, Sean Penn is the one that we are marveling, but she is, no less
she can hold her own.
She can hold her own. And the other thing which kind of surprised me, and I want to read up about the movie, is it seems to be, unless they have used really good CGI, it seems to have been ostensibly shot in a moving cab in New York. I think you have an idea. Yes, you know. But at least certain parts of it appear to be in actual cabs. So I think it mustn't have been easy. Go on.
Me.
Yes.
Well, actually, thanks to our neighbours. So a couple of our neighbours were at this screening too, through their affiliation with the San Diego film circuit. And we had a quick chat with them this morning during pickleball, if nothing else. And this was all shot on a soundstage. Apparently. So
how could that be?
It was shot. It was shot. I know it was shot in a cab on a soundstage, and the whole kind of footage of New York around them was all kind of added in, either in post or in during production. So it was a remarkable feat, because I did feel that we were on that journey from JFK to New York City. Totally. And I completely bought the illusion of it. So, yeah, but apparently this whole thing was shot on a soundstage. So,
wow.
Yeah. So.
I'm not happy to hear that. But anyway.
So you were fooled, yes.
I was totally fooled. And the only other thing I would say, and we can wrap this up, but the only thing is that there is a piece in the middle where they're talking about men versus women, which is like the stuff that people used to talk about in the 80s and in stand-up comedy sessions. And it sounded so dated. Like, if you're not bringing anything extremely insightful to this, what do men do and what do women do, it just feels so trite. So I'm kind of surprised, as good as this script is, that it kind of veered into that territory of, well, men are like this and women are like that, when you're not really having that much more stuff to say, and you're kind of pushing certain stereotypes. So that's the only part. If it was up to me, I would chop those 10 minutes out.
No, that made the movie for me. That made the movie for me, because it's so different to the narrative in popular culture today about gender dynamics. And I think that's kind of where this was going, is that that men think very differently to women, and that was really the heart of the problems of the Dakota Johnson's characters' relationships. At least that's how I read it.
And maybe this is an unfair comparison, because we shouldn't be pitting two young female filmmakers against each other, but I compare this script to something that Emerald Fennell has written, either for Promising Young Woman or for Saltburn. And I see that those scripts are so much more clever and biting in terms of getting at toxic masculinity and how the world perceives it and how it presents itself. And all of this stuff. Whereas here, it just came across like men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yeah, but here's the thing. And again, not to pit them against each other, because both are excellent. Right. But I think if this had been an Emerald Fennell movie, this would have been way overcooked, and someone would have undressed in the back of the cab, and there would have been like something strange going on. So I think I do like I think it's effective at what it does. I do agree with Yazdi, though. Its running time is 1 hour, 41 minutes, and it could have done with a little bit more of an edit to make it maybe 90 minutes, would have made a much tighter movie.
Oh, nonsense.
Yes. Anyway, let's wind this one up. So, Joe, give us your score.
As you can tell, I enjoyed this a lot. I think the contrivances aside, if you kind of let go and explore the discussion and the ebbs and flows of how these two characters get to know each other, and all of that, we know it's very forced, but it works. It worked for me. I was constantly intrigued. This movie never lost my attention. The performances were top notch. It's a little shy of a 9 for me, so I'm gonna do an 8. But
Okay.
I really thought this was very strong.
Oh, good. Yazdi.
A 7 out of 10 for me. I think people should. This is the problem. Nobody's going to the theaters anymore because it costs $25 to buy a movie ticket.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing. But people need to go out and watch such smaller movies. This entire movie is a two-hander. It's trusting these two actors to carry you through an entire movie, and they're successful. That's like a high wire act, and it needs to be applauded. I really like this filmmaker. I can't wait to see what she does next. And I'm glad that Dakota Johnson came on board. She's also a producer for the film.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm a fan of Dakota Johnson. I think she's only going to do better stuff. And so I'm glad that she's kind of putting her money where where her mouth is. So good for her. I really like this movie. People should seek it out.
And I'm with Yazdi. Mine is also a 7 out of 10. I think this is a really interesting movie. I think I'm going to actually say Sean Penn could be early consideration for maybe an Oscar nom. If nothing else good comes, which I'm sure will not be the case, but it's a good enough performance for an Oscar nomination for me for Sean Penn. Not so much for Dakota Johnson, but yeah, good movie. I would recommend this one. I would actually recommend this one to watch at home, though, Yazdi.
Yes,
I mean,
sure.
If you have a choice of which one you want to go and see at the movies, go see Kill. But this is a good one to watch in the back of an aeroplane because it's such a quiet movie and it's a dialogue-heavy movie.
Yeah. I hope this shows up on Prime or Netflix.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will very soon.
Wider exposure.
Yeah. All right. So then on to our next movie, which is Janet Planet. And I have the intro for that one. So in rural Western Massachusetts, 11-year-old Lacey spends the summer of 1991 at home, enthralled by her own imagination and the attention of her mother, Janet. As the months pass, 3 visitors enter their orbit, all captivated by Janet. And this is written and directed by Annie Baker, and it stars the lovely Julianne Nicholson, who you may know from The Mayor of Easttown. Zoe Ziegler is playing the title role of young Lacey. Elias Koteas is in here, Will Patton, Sophie Okonedo, and a few others. But it's another small movie written and directed by this talented Annie Baker. Yazdi, what did you think of Janet Planet? Interesting title.
Yeah, so this is what I wrote on my Letterboxd. In the last half hour of this film, I quietly giggled, thinking how much this film is going to annoy the non-art house moviegoer, how much it is going to test their patience, how much it is going to result in walkouts. And we had walkouts when we watched this movie.
Yeah.
The film seems tailor-made to drive that particular kind of, middle of the road moviegoer insane. And I actually admire it for that because it is so resolutely what it is. It's not trying to make anyone happy. It's not trying to, tie loose ends. In fact, it doesn't have any ends to tie. It's just an immersion at a place and time. And just like for Daddio, I spent a big portion of this movie waiting for where's the middle road for this? Where is this going? What am I supposed to take from it? Where is the plot? Who is doing bad things to whom? And then I settled in saying, shame on me. Why am I expecting those things?
Shame on you.
A movie can just be about a person or two people. And in this case, it's a character study of a mother and a daughter. And once I stopped fighting the movie and settled into it, it became a very meditative kind of experience. And I'm glad that this too can be a movie. And we'll talk more about it.
Yep. Joe.
So it's another one of those movies I have to point out the discrepancy between the audience score and the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. And, right on the Rotten Tomatoes homepage.
Yep.
critics love this. It's 83% certified fresh. The audience has a tipped over bucket of popcorn with 40%. And so it's exactly as you described yesterday. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, right? We watch a lot of movies on Moviewallas, so I think it gives me a bit more patience to kind of understand something. I know that there was a time when I would have looked at my watch at 5:30 the hour and thought, right, I'm out of here because there's nothing happening.
Yeah, and if we were watching this at home, you probably would.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, I think, there's movies that like the two of you love, like First Cow and things like that.
I love First Cow.
There's nothing there. So look, I mean, I think I really enjoyed. You're right, Yazdi. I mean, I think if you kind of just have to spend time in the presence of the movie and let go of any expectation, because like you, I couldn't find a story to grasp onto. I couldn't find a thread to pull to kind of drag me into to where it was. There was some very quirky and funny moments. I mean, there's a character that appears in the last act of the movie that just had me kind of giggling, like you. I think,
Oh, yeah.
I forget that, and everything's kind of slightly oddly named, so none of it kind of springs to mind readily. But it's well crafted. But honestly, I struggle to recommend it to anyone because nothing happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because of that nothing happening, I have to say I had a big snooze in the middle, and I can't tell if that's because the movie was so slow or I just had a bad night's sleep, and the environment of the warm movie theater and the comfy chairs sent me into a nice little lull for probably 40 minutes of the running time. So, but what I did see, I like this concept that this is a romance movie between a daughter and her mother, right? This is a daughter, a young 11-year-old who is obsessed, probably unhealthily, with a mother who's seems very flighty and at an interesting time of her life. And Joe, you and I've had many conversations about, single parents, and kind of that role, that responsibility of how much responsibility do you bear as a parent to look after that child versus, and making them center of your universe versus having a life of your own. And so I think it showed that, not that struggle, but that very difficult line that can, have a reaction in people. So, you might say Janet is actually a bad parent for pursuing her own interests, despite the impact to her daughter, Lacey. So I like that it explored that. And I love the acting. I think is it Zoe Ziegler?
Yes.
Zoe Ziegler as Lacey is phenomenal.
Wonderful,
and Julianne Nicholson is just beautiful to watch. She's such an expressive actress.
Where is her Oscar?
Yeah, exactly. So I liked it, but again, I did find myself falling asleep. And again, I never know the falling asleep, like a movie like Kill. How many times can we say this in the episode? However, we watched that movie beginning at 9:30, almost 10 o'clock at night after a day of movie watching. And I did not feel the desire to close my eyelids once. I could not keep my eyelids open in this one. So again, I never know if that's a responsibility of the movie or just the fact, again, that I was tired. And I'm not saying this was a bad movie. I just feel like it's a little bit of a snooze fest.
So I mean, several things you said. I want to react to that. I think if you go in, expecting a movie with a conventional plot where there's a, act 1, act 2, act 3, although the movie does have kind of an act 1, act 2.
Sort of, yeah.
It's about 3 different people who come within the orbit of these, of this mother and daughter. So I think you will be disappointed because I think, at the macro level, the movie really is about nothing. Nothing happens in this movie at the macro level. But I think the point the script and this director is trying to make is that your life is made up of micro things, and it's spending a lot of time observing those micro things, little walks through the woods, having little meals, outside your home, all these little things. And I think it'll definitely frustrate a lot of people, like you said, and put a lot of people to sleep, because it has a very laid back,
gentle.
meditative,
It's very gentle. Yeah.
languorous. It has a languorous, almost like a late afternoon Sunday,
Yeah.
snoozy kind of vibe about it.
Yeah.
So I completely agree that, from that perspective, the movie will be, could put someone to sleep or frustrate them. There is also, very shockingly, a lot of dialogue about philosophy and existentialism, and people talk about,
especially in Act 3, which
In
is,
Act
I think, the
3,
bit
yeah.
that I was kind of giggling at.
which I was like, really? You're expecting somebody in the cinema to kind of sit through and listen to this lecture on philosophy? So, but I like it because it's so uniquely its own. But I think of all the reasons why I like this movie, the one which is above all else is it's about a weirdo. And we don't watch movies about little kids who are weirdos. The entire movie is about this girl who is really, she's going to grow up.
I love her.
I love her too. And she's going to grow up and be somebody who's never going to fit in anywhere. And
Or she's going to be like the best entrepreneur that we've ever met in our lives,
she
right?
might be a great nerd, but she's such a, she's barely fitting in where she's at. But when she's going to grow up, she's not going to fit in anywhere. And we seldom see movies about people who don't fit in. So I really like that. And that actress, the little actress, and she's 14, this Zoe Ziegler, I don't know how they found her.
Yeah, she's great.
She is, and again, the camera's on her face so much of the time, and she is not precocious. She's not, too smart. She is just odd, and she's needy, and she's obsessed with her mom. And so I kind of enjoyed those rhythms a lot.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I think, you kind of called a few things to memory because, I must admit we've seen a whole film festival since I saw this movie, and it's it feels like it's overwritten the videotape of this movie in my mind.
Yeah.
So a lot of details are kind of coming back, and it's because the movie is, so dialed back in its intensity that, more striking things kind of overwrite the imagery. But I'm rewatching the trailer here, and I think there's a lot of things to be said here. I mean, as I related to it somewhat in terms of, with Rashmi, you said, we talked about the single family experience. People do come in and out of your lives, but you're always as a child, very dependent on that one parent that's there. So people coming in, represent kind of an interference to that is hard. You want to be respectful of your parents. And so I think, again, it explores that kind of theme very well, but it's very subtle. And I think a lot of it is.
But life is generally subtle, right?
Yeah. But it's not what we're used to seeing from a drama.
Yeah.
Right? And when we go to movies, we expect to see a drama, right? We expect to see something that, I always use the term amplitude, but this is a very gentle wave, right? This is not There's no highs and lows. There's no obvious kind of setups here. It's just this is things happening. I'll wrap up. Look, it's a very well written, directed, and slightly dull experience. And by saying dull, I don't mean that in the mean sense of the word. It's just it's not an exciting movie, so it will be hard for people to get through. I admired it more than I liked it. The performances are very memorable. So I'm going to sit with a 7. It's a kind of a generous 7. It represents a 7 that indicates that I liked it more than I actually did. But I think that is more to the accomplishment here.
Yeah.
It's something that I admire.
Yeah. Yazdi.
So this movie is the first time directorial feature of Annie Baker, who I understand is a very, very celebrated theater director. And you can kind of see some of those theatrical impulses here. And I think if you are okay with just watching or getting to know two people in their own space and in their own time, then this is the movie for you. I think it's for a particular kind of audience member, for the true, for somebody who really enjoys that kind of immersion. I had a really hard time figuring out, where is this movie set, right? It doesn't give a clue at all. Afterwards, I found out it's set in Western rural Massachusetts. And when is it set? Because
I kept asking that too in my head.
Like, is it set contemporary times? But nobody seems to have a cell phone. People are using a cassette.
Yeah, so 1991.
Somewhere. And the movie doesn't give you a clue at all about where it's set or what's happening. Although actually about the time later on in the movie, it does give you... I did not hate this movie. It did not frustrate me. But I was, like I said, I was giggling, thinking how much it will frustrate most people. I kind of enjoyed it. It never kind of... irritated me that I was out of the movie. I was in the movie the whole time. And once I just surrendered to it, I liked it. It's not the best movie I will see this year, but I kind of enjoyed getting to know this mom and her daughter. And the one thing I haven't mentioned, and the reason why ordinarily with everything we've said so far, I would give this a 7 out of 8. But
10.
No, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I would never give it a 10. No. I would have given it a 7 out of 10, but I'm going to bump it up to an 8 out of 10 because I think the imagery here is beautiful as well. I mean, a man like simply disappears in the middle of a picnic date, in the last half of the movie. And I'm still wondering, like, what happened? And then there are these giant papier-mâché animals which appear out of nowhere in the woods.
I wish I'd been awake for that.
And then there is this preteen daughter, this Lacey, who's standing against a lit door, asking questions while somebody's having a migraine attack. All of these things are kind of, for a movie which is that amorphous, they're kind of stuck in my head. So I like the visual look of the movie. The camera, with the exception of one instance, the camera never moves in this movie. If you notice, like in most movies, the camera is moving with the character. Yeah. There's one instance where they're walking through the woods where I saw the camera moving, but outside of that, the camera is always still.
And people come into frame,
out of frame. So
always on a tripod.
Always on a tripod. So I really appreciated all of these.
Bit like Moviewallas.
Formal mechanisms, yes. Bit like Moviewallas. So 8 out of 10, it's not for everyone, but like I said at the start, I'm glad that this too can be cinema.
Yeah, I like what you were saying, Yazdi, about this is a Sunday afternoon. This movie is Sunday afternoon. It didn't rock my world, but Janet Planet certainly deserves some accolade.
The worst thing about the movie is the title.
Yeah.
It's a terrible title.
Well, I think it's Janet is her planet, right? The world revolves around Janet is the explanation.
It only makes sense when the movie is in the rearview mirror.
Yes. Right? And that's a very nice way to describe it.
But there is another clue. Her mom is an acupuncturist.
Correct.
And the name of her acupuncture
business
is Janet Planet.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
So there's that. But yeah.
Okay. Last movie.
Which is Ghostlight.
Ghostlight.
And I shall be introducing that.
And I think I'm the only one who saw this.
Correct.
So you saw it
I did not see it.
In the back seat. No,
I didn't.
You were not engaged at all.
Nope.
This movie is doing well. It's been at least 2 weeks since it's been out in the cinemas, and it's been doing well. So I'm eager to watch it. It's from writer Kelly O'Sullivan. And it's directed by Kelly O'Sullivan and Alex Thompson. And it stars Keith Kupferer, Catherine Mallon Kupferer, and Tara Mellon. So Kupferer, maybe their husband and wife.
They are father and daughter.
Father and daughter in real life.
And Dolly DeLeon, who we met in Triangle of Sadness. And got nominated.
Very good. Tara Mellon is in the movie as well. And the one-liner is that when a construction worker unexpectedly joins a local theater's production of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, the drama on stage oddly starts to mirror his own life. So another one of those smaller movies. Rashmi, you're the only one who's seen it. Tell us.
This is a rush out and see if you like little movies that are complete little worlds. It's an exquisite movie about grief and how different people handle grief, and also about where we get our salvation from, about how sometimes people you don't know you better than you know you. It's just a beautiful movie. It's so good. Right from the outset, you know who this family is. You know something's happened in their life, but it's not till a while later that you actually figure out what's actually happening. But it doesn't matter, because what's unfolding in front of you is just so delightful. And considering it's an exquisite movie about grief, it's not sad. It's actually very funny. And there are sad moments, but generally it's actually almost like a dark comedy, like a black comedy. It's quirky, well-formed characters are all people that we know. They're all people we recognize. There is a fantastic dynamic between father and daughter, probably because they are father and daughter. Just a great little movie. I love this. I love this movie. It's a little contrived to begin with. There's like an inciting incident, which is a little bit contrived. But again, I could forgive that for how it plays out in the end. It's a great movie. I love this movie.
It seems like my kind of film.
Yes, you're going to love it.
Right.
Joe, I think you'll like it too.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the reviews here on Rotten Tomatoes, just kind of trying to familiarize myself, because it's all unknowns from kind of my little sphere.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all actors that have been in other movies.
I did see that, again, we talk sometimes about the reference, and I just did this for the last movie, between the critics and the audience, and both love it here.
Yeah,
so, that's telling.
Yeah, it's something that everyone can identify with, and I think a lot has to do with the main characters. Absolutely wonderful.
What can you say about the Romeo and Juliet? Because I kept hearing, so I was, just to set the scene here. Rashmi was watching this. I wasn't. I was engaged in, I think, editing our IFLA podcast.
Correct.
To try and get that one published and on YouTube. So I couldn't commit to watching this at the same time. But I heard lots and lots of Shakespeare stuff.
Yeah, so it's basically, the premise is that, this guy who's a construction worker finds himself acting in a small community theater, and the show that they're putting on is Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
That's really all I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it feels like there's
a lot of Shakespeare. It's very relevant, and I love Shakespeare.
Okay.
But it's very relevant, and it's very poignant that it's Romeo and Juliet. That's the play that he ends up being in.
Excellent.
Yeah. Great movie.
Romeo? Anyway, we'll watch.
I will give this one a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
This is really, really beautiful.
Wow.
This is really beautiful. Yeah. It's fantastically acted. It's got a great script. It's very tight. The highs and lows play out so well. The beats are so beautifully done. Really good movie.
I could see as you were watching it, there was kind of a crescendo.
Yeah.
That kind of built. You started off somewhat lukewarm.
Somewhat distant.
Then your eyes widened and you sat up in your seat, and by the end you were like fully engaged.
Yeah.
I could see that the movie was really having its
impact,
desired effect.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
All right. I think that's enough for one podcast. So it's going to be time to hit the stop button on this one. Please do check out our YouTube channel. We're not really trying to, but we're putting these podcasts out on YouTube as well, hoping to maybe tackle a different audience to the regular podcast downloaders. I know a lot of people listen to us on walks and in the car, and less so kind of in front of a TV set, but do check out our YouTube channel, where we're trying to see our numbers rise there too. So moviewallas.com, youtube.com/moviewallas is where you'll find the whole string of the 8 or 10 podcasts now that I think we've been doing.
All in Yazdi's house.
All in Yazdi's house. Yeah, that's interesting. We've got a lovely podcast studio at home, but Yazdi always is gracious enough to host us here. So
with snacks.
With snacks. Well, we only come for the snacks. That's really the big enticement. But yeah, Moviewallas, Facebook.com/Moviewallas, Twitter.com/Moviewallas, or I guess it's X.com, although we don't really tweet. Instagram, and now YouTube as well. So let us know what you think. I'll wrap up for today. Too many movies, too little time. A goodbye from me.
And me.
And me as well.